Thank you, Jody. Some of you may recall in 2008, the Holstein Association USA Legislative Affairs Committee recommended to the Board of Directors that the association develop a program to stabilize the peaks and valleys of milk prices.
With that as the initiative, your Holstein Association developed the Dairy Price Stabilization Program, the DPSP. We recognized then, as we do today, the volatility in dairy farm milk prices and dairy product prices is extremely difficult for dairy farmers, milk processors, and end users of milk and dairy products to manage. Such volatility creates major problems for those of you milking cows to manage cash flow and make capital investment decisions. When prices are at their lows, returns over feed costs become unfavorable and even negative, as everybody in this room knows. These unfavorable returns have a negative impact beyond the dairy farm level. Farm input suppliers are negatively impacted as dairy farmers reduce their purchases of feed, seed, fertilizers, crop chemicals, machinery, and other inputs. And these lower input purchases negatively impact local businesses and communities. Make no mistake, our primary objective with the DPSP was to reduce the volatility of milk prices to help you, the Holstein Association USA member. You know, everybody talks about milk prices. You get a group of dairymen together and milk prices often comes up. But it's really the peaks and valleys that make it so difficult for everybody involved in our business. Well, as some of you will recall, there was some good interest in House's DPSP, and we made presentations on the program from coast to coast. But even so, there wasn't enough to get support for the program in place at the national level. And we had some good support here from the Pennsylvania delegation in Washington as well. Some of those elected officials were helpful. I think of one of the times we were there in Washington with former Director Jim Burdett as well, working on some things. How disappointing that was that we didn't get the support we wanted, because we believed that if the DPSP had been implemented, there would not have been the pain, since there's been at that time to now at the farm gate level. We've all seen it. The volatility has continued. The roller coaster ride milk prices have been on over the last 8 years is just what we had predicted they would be if the DPSP was not implemented. What's happened over that time is no surprise to me, or I'm sure anybody in this room. The Holstein Association's program did get some traction. In the end, however, as you know, the folks on Capitol Hill chose to support the Margin Protection Program Dairy, or the MPP, as the program that in theory was designed to help our nation's dairy farmers. It was in 2014 when federal law created the MPP that replaced the Dairy Price Support Program and the Milk Income Loss Contracts. MPP began on January 1, 2015, just over 2 years ago, and you know what's happened since that time. So why is the MPP flawed? As you know, MPP's margin protection for producers is based upon the difference between income, the all milk price, and feed expenses. The all milk price calculates a monthly national average gross milk income figure per hundredweight. The all milk price does not account for marketing costs deducted from dairy farmers' milk checks and thus overstates actual milk income. Meanwhile, MPP's feed expenses are calculated using a formula that incorporates the Midwest and Plains price bases for corn, forage, and soybeans. Producers in several regions observe that the Midwest Plains-based costs for corn, forage, and soybeans do not accurately reflect distant regions' costs. The difference between the all milk price and the MPP feed expenses make the MPP's every other month net margin calculation, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Therefore, the major reason the MPP has generally failed to provide a true safety net for dairy farmers is because the margin calculation is doubly skewed. The all milk price fails to accurately measure regional net farm milk income on a monthly basis. Also, the regional feed cost calculation ignores actual costs for dairy regions distant from the Midwest Plains, people like you here in this room today. As a result, the MPP is regarded as a failure by many dairymen. In 2015, for example, farmers paid premiums totaling $772 million and received only about 1 cent on the dollar back on program payouts. While I believe the MPP was flawed from the beginning, the results have definitely borne it out. Even so, as a practical matter, it is almost always easier to amend an existing federal program than to go through the contentious, multi-year process of creating another federal dairy program. It just probably wouldn't happen, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, the Holstein Association USA is in favor of revising the MPP to account for actual regional milk prices received, as well as actual regional feed costs, as follows. Number 1, change federal farm law through a corrective action to provide for regional calculations of producers' net all milk prices. Such regional calculations would factor in marketing costs. So this is the first step that needs to be done to hopefully improve the MPP. MPP plus 2, as we're calling it. The second would be to change federal farm law through a corrective action to provide for regional calculations of feed costs. For ease of overall data collection, the regional calculations of dairy farmers' actual milk prices, net all milk price, and the regional feed cost calculations should span the same geographic areas. These two easy-to-make changes are all that may be needed to transform our federal milk program, which is ineffective and generally unpopular with dairy farmers, into a program that honestly calculates actual regional milk prices and feed costs in determining net margins. The corrections could go a long way in ensuring that MPP accomplishes its intended purpose, which is supposed to be a safety net for U.S. dairy farmers, for everyone in this room. The Holstein Association USA's Board of Directors, at their meeting in Minnesota in November of last year, adopted a position statement on the MPP advocating for monthly regional calculations of producers, as I've outlined, net all milk prices that factor in marketing costs combined with regional calculations of feed costs. These regional calculations of milk prices and feed costs would result in a much more accurate determination of net margins and ensure that the MPP accomplishes its intended purpose, again, as a safety net for U.S. dairy farmers. The two corrective members which I've outlined do just that. Let me know over the next couple of days here if you support these changes. Also, contact your elected officials in Washington, D.C. to encourage them to support these changes as well. As you work on your end, and your Holstein Association will do everything we can to get these changes implemented. It is our belief these two MPP revisions have the potential to reduce the volatility of U.S. milk prices. At this stage, I'm going to bring Lindsay Wharton back up to the podium to talk to you about another initiative of the Holstein Association.
So there is a second issue that the board adopted a position statement on, and that's maximum allowable levels of somatic cell count for our milk. So the board has adopted a position statement expressing strong support for lowering the maximum allowable somatic cell count for interstate shipment of raw milk from 750,000 cells per milliliter to 400,000 cells per milliliter. As you well know, this would improve milk quality and dairy cow health, as well as increase the amount of U.S. milk products that are eligible for export. So Holstein staff are going to be attending the upcoming National Conference on Interstate Milk Shipment, which is a meeting that's being held in Michigan in May. And they'll be presenting this on behalf of our membership. This meeting's held every 2 years, and this is an issue that's been voted on previously, and what I'm told is that the vote gets a little bit closer each time. So the board feels it's appropriate to express our support and see if we can't get it over the hill. As most of you probably know, many international markets do have that full 100,000 limit, so the U.S. is a little bit unique in that, and so that requires processors to have to do extra work to get our milk, so it's able to be exported, so that's extra time and expense. Not to mention just portraying an image of the quality milk that many of you in this room, as well as your cohorts across the country, work so hard to produce every day. So again, we want to just make sure that this issue is still top of mind with everyone. We feel it's very appropriate, and I just finished by saying that if any of you know your representatives who will be attending that Conference on Interstate Milk Shipment, we would definitely encourage you to visit with them on this issue and encourage them to take this right step for U.S. dairymen. Thank you.